Thinking about getting a PhD, you're probably picturing long years as a student, pinching pennies, right? Well, I want you to forget all that, because in France, it's a completely different world. We're going to break down how to do a PhD there, because the whole system is set up to treat you less like a student and more like a professional researcher from day one.
Okay, so right off the bat, this is the single biggest difference you need to get your head around. While most of the world sees a PhD candidate as a student, France sees them as a salaried employee. Now, that might not sound like a huge deal, but trust me, it's a fundamental shift in mindset that changes absolutely everything, from how you apply to how you get paid. You're not just enrolling in a program, you're applying for your first research job.
And hey, if the idea of being a salaried researcher isn't enough to get you excited, just look at this number. 380 euros. That's the average tuition fee for an entire year at a public university. No, that's not a typo. When you combine crazy low fees with an actual monthly salary, the financial side of doing a PhD in France starts to look, well, pretty amazing.
So how on earth does this all work? To really understand the opportunity here, we first need to get into the nitty-gritty of the French doctoral system. It's just built differently from the ground up.
So in the French framework, a PhD is basically a 3-year, fixed-term research project. You'll need a master's degree to get in. That's pretty standard. But what's different is that you're part of what's called a doctoral school, or école doctorale. Think of it as this dedicated hub for all your training and career development. And the goal? It isn't just to get you a degree. It's to give you legitimate professional research experience.
Okay, so how does that unique structure actually affect how you apply? Well, this brings us to what is, without a doubt, the single most important rule to remember. In France, your first and most important mission is always to find a supervisor. You do not apply to the university first.
And look, don't just take my word for it. This quote from the University of Paris-Saclay says it all crystal clear. The whole process doesn't start on some generic admissions website. It starts with a conversation. You have to reach out directly to the researchers and the labs you're interested in to get the ball rolling.
So how do you actually do that? Well, there are basically two main paths, and it really depends on your field. If you're in STEM, you're most likely going to be applying for a specific, predefined project that a lab has already advertised, and it often comes with funding already attached. But if you're in the humanities or social sciences, the whole process is often flipped. You're the one who proposes your own original research idea directly to a professor you'd like to work with.
All right, so where do you find these amazing opportunities? You're going to want to bookmark a few key places. ACDM is a huge one. It's a central hub for tons of doctoral applications. The National Campus France website also has its own portal with PhD listings. And of course, never forget the old school method. Just go straight to the websites of the universities and research labs that you're interested in.
Okay, you did it. You found a supervisor who's interested in your project. Awesome. Now for the big question, the money. Let's talk about funding. But remember what we said. We're not just talking about scholarships here. We're talking about securing your first research job.
This right here is a total game changer. Unlike so many other countries where you're scrambling to piece together funding year after year, the standard in France is to have your funding fully secured for all 3 years right from the beginning. And that funding, it usually comes in the form of a real, actual employment contract.
So there are two main types of contracts you're going to see. The first is called the Contrat Doctoral, or Doctoral Contract. This is your standard public sector job contract with a university. The second one, which is a really unique option, is the CIFRE contract. That's where you're actually employed by a private company. But look, both are 3-year contracts and both come with a very respectable minimum gross monthly salary of around 2,100 euros.
Let's just zoom in on that CIFRE contract for a second, because it's a truly fantastic system. It stands for Industrial Agreement for Training Through Research. And what it does is create this formal 3-way partnership between you, the company that's paying you, and the academic lab that's supervising your research. It's brilliant.
This diagram shows it perfectly. You, the salaried doctorant or the salaried PhD candidate, are sitting right there in the middle. You've got a work contract with a company, but you're also enrolled in a PhD program at a university lab. I mean, it's the best of both worlds, right? You get all the academic rigor, but it's combined with real-world industrial R&D experience.
And the financial side of a CIFRE contract is very solid. For 2024, the minimum gross annual salary is set at 25,200 euros. For most PhD candidates, that provides a pretty comfortable standard of living, all while you're gaining this invaluable professional experience that employers absolutely love after you graduate.
Now, these employment contracts are definitely the most common route, but they're not the only one. There are also some really prestigious scholarships out there, like the Eiffel Excellence Scholarship. The key thing you have to know about these, though, is that you generally can't just apply for them yourself. You have to be nominated by the French university that has already accepted you.
All right, you've secured a supervisor. You've secured your funding. Fantastic. The final major hurdle is the administrative one, getting the right visa so you can actually start your new life as a researcher in France.
So, the absolute key to your visa is often this one document, the Convention d'accueil, or hosting agreement. This might be the single most important piece of paper you'll deal with. It's issued by your university, and it officially confirms your role and status as a researcher. Think of it as way more than an invitation. It's your formal work authorization. With that hosting agreement in hand, you can then apply for the best visa you can get, the Passeport Talent Cherche, or the Researcher Talent Passport Visa. This is specifically for people who have an employment contract, like a Contrat Doctoral or a CIFRE. If, on the other hand, your funding is from a smaller grant or just your own personal funds, you'd apply for a standard student visa.
And that's really the bottom line. It's that simple. The type of funding you get directly dictates which visa you need to apply for. An employment contract gets you the Researcher Talent Passport. Other types of funding lead to the student visa. It's a clear and direct link.
So let's do a quick recap of the main points, because this is really important. First, think of a PhD in France as a job. It's a research position. Second, remember the golden rule, find your supervisor before you do anything else. Third, understand that funding usually means getting a real employment contract, like the doctoral or CIFRE contracts. And finally, your visa path is decided by your funding. Simple as that.
In France, your research isn't just something you study on the side. It is your profession. You get to be a salaried professional from the very first day, contributing to science or industry while earning your degree. So the only question left is, what real-world problem are you going to solve?